Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Janavallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjano. Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjano. Jamunatira Bonachari. Jamunatira Vanachari. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjano. Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjano. Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjano. Jamunatira Vanachari. Jamunatira Vanachari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Sri Radha Madhava ki, Sri Radha Giridhari ki. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paripurna Jashodhara Shishi Maharaj Divine Grace Abhay Charana Aravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paripurna Jashodhara Shishi Maharaj Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai. Grantaraj srimadbhagavatam ki Jai. Samveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories, Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. So this morning we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, chapter 14. We'll do text 11 and 12. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskitam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jamudiyariyat Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, is everyone ready? I want to make sure I'm on the level. Give class. Also, can you open the door just a little bit? Let some of our good friend fresh air in. We're good. I think we're good. Nirupita prajapala sa jigham sativai prajaha tatapi sanvayamam. Excuse me. Tatapi santvayamamum nashmam stat patakam sprishet nirupita prajapala sa jigham sativai prajaha tatapi sanvayamamum nashmam stat patakam sprishet nirupita prajapala sa jigham sativai prajaha tatapi santva yimam mum nashmam stat patakam sprishet nirupita prajapala sativai prajaha
tatapi santvayamamum nashmam stat patakam sprishet nirupita prajapala sajigham sativai prajaha tatapi santvayamamum nashmam stat patakam sprishet nirupita prajapala sajagham sativai prajaha tatapi santvayamamum nashmam stat patakam sprishet nirupita prajapala sajigham sativai prajaha tatapi santvayamamum nashmam stat patakam sprishet.
Anyone else? Nirupita prajapala sajigham sativai prajaha tatapi santvayamamum nashmam stat patakam brajat. Word for word. Nirupitaha, appointed. Prajapala, the king. Saha, he. Jighamsati, desires to harm. Vai, certainly. Prajaha, the citizens. Tata api, nevertheless. Sandvayema, we should pacify. Amum, him. Na, not. Asman, us. Tat, his. Patakam, sinful result. Sprishet, may touch. Translation: we appointed this Vena king, we appointed this Vena, king of the state, in order to give protection to the citizens, but now he has become the enemy of the citizens. Despite all these discrepancies, we should at once try to pacify him. By doing so, we may not be touched by the sinful results caused by him. Purport: the saintly sages elected King Vena to become king, but he proved to be mischievous. Therefore, the sages were very much afraid of incurring sinful reaction. The law of karma prohibits a person even to associate with a mischievous individual. By electing Vena to the throne, the saintly sages certainly associated with him. Ultimately, King Vena became so mischievous that the saintly sages actually became afraid of becoming contaminated by his activities. Thus, before taking any action against him, the sages tried to pacify and correct him so that he might turn from his mischief. Next text, translation. The saintly sages continued thinking, "Of course, we are completely aware of his mischievous nature, yet nevertheless we enthrone Vena. If we cannot persuade King Vena to accept our advice, he will be condemned by the public and we will join them. Thus, by our prowess, we shall burn him to ashes." Purport: saintly persons are not interested in political matters. Yet they are always thinking of the welfare of the people in general. Consequently, they sometimes have to come down to the political field and take steps to correct the misguided government or royalty. However, in Kali Yuga, saintly persons are not as powerful as they previously were. You ever notice that? Okay. They used to be able to burn any sinful man to ashes by virtue of their spiritual prowess. There'd be a lot of pile of ashes around this place if that was the case these days. Now saintly persons have no such power due to the influence of the age of Kali. Indeed, the Brahmins do not even have the power to perform sacrifices in which animals are put into a fire to attain a new life. Under these circumstances, instead of actively taking part in politics, saintly persons should engage in chanting the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. By the grace of Lord Chaitanya, by simply chanting this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, the general populace can derive all benefits without political implications. Now let me read the translation for the next verse, because there's no purport. That whoever gives class tomorrow will start with the purport. The great sages, having thus decided, approached King Vena. Concealing their real anger, they pacified him with sweet words and then spoke as follows. There's a cliffhanger there, so what did they say? You'll have to find out. You'll have to come back tomorrow. Okay, so these verses. Om Agyan Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chaksudan Minitam Dena Daismai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasani Gaur Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchika Bhadarubhashya Kripa Sindhu Bevaja Patitanam Bhavani Bho Vaishnavi Bho Namo Namaha. So with your blessings and good wishes, I'll try to say a few words. Okay. Everyone doing okay this morning? Everyone's here? Okay. Okay. I'll try not to dampen the enthusiasm with my class. So the first thing I noticed was this Prajapala. It's translated as the king, but what that specifically means, Pala means protector, Praja means living entities who have taken birth in the kingdom. So that's what a king is supposed to do, or anyone in charge. They're supposed to protect those in their charge, in their care. And it says here, Prabhupada, it's translated in the verse that he became the enemy of the citizens. Instead of the protector of the citizens, he became the enemy of the citizens. So that's a big problem. It's a big problem because that's a king, and he's responsible for quite a large number of not just human beings. There was one lecture I know Prabhupada was giving. He's talking about this praja. Praja means those who take birth in the kingdom. Every single living entity the king is responsible for. And we have that story of, just was on the tip of my tongue. He was the king that the Indra and another demigod were disguised as birds and flew in the window. And the hawk said, No. Who's the one? And the hawk said, wait, it's Shivi, Maharaj Shivi, that, you're protecting this dove or whatever, but that's my food. So he actually went to cut off some flesh from his own arm, and then they revealed themselves as demigods. They're just testing that he was actually thinking, yeah, you're right. You're also one of my citizens, so I'm supposed to help you out also. But the point is that, point is, all living entities are the children of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the king has to protect them all accordingly. So, now as far as the human society is described here, that the Maharaj Vena went off the rails, as they say, and he's been mischievous. That's an interesting word. I mean, didn't even say. Is that? I guess there's different levels of being mischievous, right? Usually you think of it in a light term, but apparently it also can be. Right. So he's very foolish and mischievous and dangerous and so many different things. So that's one point, is that that's what a king is supposed to do, or a leader is supposed to do, is to take care of the citizens, take care of the people in your charge, like that. So next one is that it says that the saintly persons, they were concerned that, of course, incurring sinful reaction, because they were responsible for putting him in that post. So they get some reaction for that. But there's also described here, they may be contaminated by his association, of course, by his activities and association. And I think we're going to bring that up in the next purport also. But one is very, very cautious about one who associates, who you associate with, because you've been contaminated by their consciousness. Like that, where you go, different places, and so on. Now, devotees of the Lord take risks in the age of Kali, because where can you go where it's not a contaminated atmosphere? Nowhere. Yeah, practically. You say, "Well, I'll go to India. I'll go to India." Well, you go to India, good luck. Unless you're at a Hare Krishna temple in India, practically speaking, right? I'll go to the Dham or this or that. Now, the Dham was infested. It was when one lecturer, Sadhaputta, was talking, and he said that he was talking about impersonalism. He mentioned that they had gone to a science and religion conference in Vrindavan. And he said he was talking to this one scientist who was a Mayavadi. And he goes, "You know something? Everyone I met in Vrindavan was a Mayavadi." You know, all the scholars and scientists that came for that meeting, all the Indian scientists, and they're all Mayavadis, all impersonalists. Everyone you speak to is. So it's just the nature of Kali Yuga, that where can you go to get good association, pure association? Someone has to be very, very careful. We also have the example of Maharaj Prataparudra and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu knew he was a devotee, but still, to set the example, he would not associate with him. He said, "I know he's a devotee, but the name king is there. And as soon as you say king, you have all of that opulence and power and all kinds of things. But we see that as soon as there is money and power, there's so much corruption." Just in the lecture the other day, Rina Maharaj was saying about, someone asked about Gandhi. He said he wasn't a saintly person, he was a politician. And what did he do? He took India away from corrupt British politicians and turned it over to corrupt Indian politicians. Right? You live there. Is that true? So what was the benefit? That you could say, yes, now we have our own men who are corrupt running the government instead of foreigners. But they're all corrupt, because that position immediately leads to some like that. So that's one thing. So one has to be, but as preachers, we have to take a risk. Can't say, "I can't go out those doors. It's very contaminating," right? Just go out, look at a billboard or this or that or whatever. I haven't seen those billboards. Not that I'm looking for them.
You mean the ones called Friday?
No, the Gone Bananas ones. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I didn't do so much guidance.
Oh, okay. All right. I can bring it up. Okay. But usually there's, what Gone Bananas is? Good. Okay. Anyways, coming into BB, there's these gigantic billboards from a place called Gone Bananas. It's a store down here on Mission Boulevard. So I'll just leave it at that. But anyway, where you go, you look up at the billboard, it's always intoxication or this or that. It's like they have that beer one. You come in, it's been there for a long time. It says something like even a bad, even you break up your date or something, a bad date or this or that, is okay if you have a beer. Or it just becomes a story, a good story, right? So in other words, you get intoxicated, you forget all your problems. So just advocating all kinds of horrible things. So wherever you go, it's contaminated in Kali Yuga. So but the devotees take that risk. to preach Krishna consciousness, and because they're preaching, they're protected. They're trying to give mercy, because who can we find who's not contaminated by the modes of material nature? That's the devotees, and Krishna protects such devotees. But the sages were fearful about getting contaminated by his association. Also, they were concerned primarily about what's going to happen to the citizens. So, and another thing we'll go into the next purport is, there's a problem, but the first solution, well, let's try to pacify him. At least let's try to see if we can pacify him and get him to understand the situation and change before we become violent. Like that. So it's always a first thing in dealing with people. Don't have violence as being your first, whether it's verbal or physical. Try to talk some reason first. That's the like that. Like in politics, there's different levels of appeasing an enemy, right? You can talk to them like that. You offer them some position, some bribe. Then there's dissension among their own camp. The last thing is war or violence. The very, very last thing. Like that. So, the very last thing. Yeah, just try to pacify everyone. No one wants war. Like that. So it says they continued thinking, we're aware of his nature, we enthroned him, we have to somehow or other persuade the king, and if we don't, we become condemned, the citizens become condemned, and then I guess we'll have to resort to the last thing, which is to burn them to ashes. You had to be very, very cautious. Can you imagine having that power? That you can just curse someone and then burn them to ashes? That's amazing. Very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. So wanted to be very, along with power comes responsibility. That's one thing. Along with power comes a lot of responsibility. So if you have the power to greatly affect other people's lives, you have to be very, very cautious. Very, very cautious. And Prabhupada's saying here in the purport, a very good point, is that this is in previous ages, very powerful personalities, but in the Kali Yuga, saintly persons are not as powerful as they previously were. They used to have this ceremony. They have Ashvamedha, Govamedha, where you take a cow or a horse, and in the ceremony, actually, they're sacrificed in the fire to test the mantras, and then a new body would come out. They'd come out in a new body. It was just to test the mantras. It wasn't like there's horse burgers after the yajna or something like that. It wasn't like that. It was just to test the mantras. And these things are forbidden. It's one of the few things forbidden in the age of Kali, because no one has the potency to do this. No one has the potency to properly perform such ceremonies. Where's that Brahmana Tejas? So in the age of Kali, Prabhupada's saying here that under the circumstances, instead of actually, and also politics, that was the other point I wanted to bring up. Do you ever know any devotees who just like talking about politics all the time? Yeah, I figured you'd say that, Balaram, with enthusiasm. Well, just what's going on. Just on and on and on about politics. We all love him dearly, but just... No. Well, there's ISKCON politics, what's going on, just politics, right? One purport Prabhupada says, it's in the Bhagavad Gita that the devotee is very, very peaceful. One reason is he doesn't take sides. And Prabhupada refers about political things. Doesn't take, because they say if you have a dinner party, what are the two things not to discuss? Yes, don't bring up religion and politics. They'll start all these fights, right? You get family members together, right, for the holidays. There's always a fight. Why? Because someone brings up religion and politics, right? People get very, very, that in sports, I guess, because people identify. This is my team. This is my elected official. This is my religion. And they get really, really attached to these things, and they become greatly offended if you say something, and all kinds of fist fights break out, and all people get all upset, and so on. People are very, very attached to all of these kinds of things. So a devotee doesn't take sides, especially in Kali Yuga. Whose side are you going to take? It's the lesser of two evils, practically. And also devotees in general, Brahmins, they're not involved in politics, so to speak, at least actively. They're not involved, just as politicians aren't involved in Brahminical activities. A Vaishya is not engaged in Brahminical activities. A Sudra is not engaged in Kshatriya activity. I mean, that's how it's supposed to be because we all have our nature. It's not our nature to be political. Someone has to be political. Someone has to be a politician in the sense of in charge. And sometimes that's not an easy thing to do. Sometimes you have to bend the rules a little bit. Believe it or not, sometimes you have to get heavy. Sometimes you have to appease someone. It's not an easy thing to be in charge of people like that. Even if you're playing by the rules, it's so many difficulties are there. But at least if you follow the rules, then just like in Europe, I guess not just the medieval times, but they had the laws of chivalry, right, for knights of the Round Table and so on. You had some rules you had to follow. It wasn't just barbarism like that. Just like even in the Ramayana, Lord Ramachandra actually requested or asked of Ravana, "You want to have peace?" He actually asked, "Let's not go to war. Let's talk about peace." And of course, Ravana turned it down. Just turned it down. He said, "Forget it." And there's there in the Mahabharata also. They just, what can you do? But just to show that, it is described that Lord Ram, if Ravana had returned Sita, he would have forgiven him completely and just left him alone. That was it. Just left him alone. If he just returned Sita. And that message was given to him multiple times. Just return Sita. But because he refused to return Sita, the whole, not only Ravana, but the whole dynasty, the whole Lanka was destroyed. So, sometimes that happens. But the point is that devotees aren't really that interested in politics. They're not really that interested. And I gave the example of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Maharaj Bhattapruja. It's especially in the age of Kali, it's a very unclean occupation. Does anyone really think it's above board and clean? Politics? No, it's not. Yeah, I mean, during the elections, they're posing themselves as being for the people, prajapala, right? So many wonderful things and this and that, and we'll fix this and that. But it's a very, very unclean, unsavory occupation, the age of Kali. So devotees try to stay away from those things. They stay away from those things because one can become contaminated and so on and so on. And our contamination, stay away doesn't mean you go rub shoulders with politicians. It means we don't bother discussing them. It's not that important. It's really not that important. So, what this politician's doing, what that one's doing, this one's policy, that policy. For the most part, 99.9% of it is not at all important. And it's a waste of our valuable time. And Prabhupada says here, instead of getting involved in politics, what's the panacea for all problems? It's the chanting of Hare Krishna. It's the spreading of Krishna consciousness. If we want to bring about a positive effect in the world for all the suffering praja, it's the spreading of Krishna consciousness. It's the spreading of Krishna consciousness. Just like we have a Tulsi Gabbard there in Hawaii. What can she do? She's going to stop the luau's? She's going to pass a law, no more luau's? No, that's not going to, in Kali Yuga, devotees, our hands are tied. It's the age of Kali. What can we do? Very, very, very little. As far as from that level. You can't pass a law, especially in the West. You can't do this, you can't do that. Forget it. Even hint that. You give a luau? What is a luau? Do you know what a luau is? Yeah, pig and poi. You ever seen those pictures where they cook a whole pig, stick an apple in its mouth? Okay. And what's it? Poi is that root they cook. It's like glue. Like that. I've never been to one, so I'm not speaking from experience, but that's the big thing. Just like here in America, what is it? Barbecue. Or they say in Australia, Barbie. Right? There's a Bobby. That's Bobby. So, cook and eat unmentionable things, right? So you can't outlaw that, right? You just can't outlaw that. People just, they'll up in arms. You don't even go there. So what can we do in Kali Yuga? We can spread the Krishna conscious movement and purify the consciousness of the citizens. And that, especially if we're going to have a democracy. Democracy only works if two things: the people are educated and they're religious. Where's that taken from? The Federalist Papers by Mr. Madison, James Madison, one of the founding fathers. There's a whole paper called the Federalist Papers, which go into great detail about democracy and how it will work. And they all agree that democracy will only work if people are very educated and they're very religious. So what's the problem with today's population?
Uneducated and religious.
So is democracy working? Yeah. So it's a political system, and they're the ones who put it together, and they said it's only going to work if people are educated and religious, God conscious. And we see, because people are not God conscious and they're not very educated, there's so many problems. Who do they elect? They elect the biggest person who's irreligious and uneducated. Right? Those kinds of people are attractive to them, right? The biggest animal gets to the top. Because all the lesser animals are very attracted. Oh, very nice, very nice, very nice. So these are some points here. So the spreading of Krishna consciousness is the real panacea. Otherwise, it's become sense gratification. Just talking about mundane affairs, right? Was that one of the items that destroy one's devotional service? What is it called? Prajalpa. Prajalpa is just talk that really has no value. It really has no value, right? Just like if you and I have a conversation about who's running for office in China. Is that really going to help you or me or anyone? No, it's just a waste of time, a complete waste of time, materially and spiritually. That's the point. It's not just a waste of one's spiritual time for spiritual things, but it's materially it's a waste also, because our conversation will have no bearing on the outcome, no bearing whatsoever. Right? What are you going to do if you don't like the mayor of SanDiego? Is that going to change anything? Are you talking to your friend about it? It's just letting a lot of hot air out. Yeah, that's the expression, right? A lot of hot air. It's a waste of time. It's sense gratification. Instead of hearing and chanting about Krishna or even doing something materially useful, we just waste our time talking about all these things. It's a sense gratification. It's a sense gratification. So these are some certain things to consider. So these sages that put Maharaj Vena into office, they had to do some act very dynamically. Okay, it's not working out. What to do? Well, first try to pacify him. That's not working out. Well, brush up on our cursing, and we'll just remove him from the office and move on. So, but something has to be done, right? And that's a thing also. If you see a problem, something should be done. Something that's a sign of a conscious person, let alone a Krishna conscious person. If there's a problem, something has to be done. Don't let it go on. It could be as simple as a tear in your kurta. It makes you look like a bum, or this has to be cleaned, or this has to be paid, or whatever. Just whatever. You see something wrong, it's a symptom of a conscious person that they'll take care of it immediately, like that. Yeah. So, any questions or comments on these 3 verses? Please.
It says here in text 12 that, okay, we'll try to pacify him, but if he doesn't pacify, by our prowess we shall burn him to ashes. And it's right there in the Sanskrit, sandagdam, dahishyam. But I thought after they killed him, they churned his body. How do they do that if it was just ash?
Mm-hmm.
Seems to be a contradiction.
Well, I've never heard. I've heard devotees give classes on this particular king, and also King Janak, his father. as in Sita, Janak.
Yeah, sure.
His body was churned also. In fact, all of the descendants of that king were named Janak for many, 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 many generations. So when you say Janak Maharaj, it could be anyone.
Oh.
In fact, the word Matila, where they come from, means churning.
Uh-huh.
To commemorate that. So exactly, and no one, how that actually was done and the subtlety of the whole thing. We say churning, we think, well, it must have been like, churning butter or something like that. Exactly what happened, I'm not sure what the condition of the body was. Was it by mantra or something?
So, yeah, there's more.
Are you thinking of
having that done for me?
burning someone to ashes?
No.
Churning someone?
No, I was just. It's just that I always had this image, they killed Vena with high-sounding words.
Yes.
And then they churned his arms, got Nishada, and then came Prita. And I thought, it's churning.
Well, I guess as we read, maybe more will come out in the purport. Unless
Yeah,
you know,
maybe.
because you already edited all of these.
Well, I'm going to also check the commentaries. We have some commentary on this.
Good.
They may deal with this.
And,
All right. Technical question.
anyone else? Anything else? Bala Ram.
You're just talking about politics, and I remember reading one of my spiritual master's books. He says that he was there and driving in the car with Prabhupada, and there was some politician in the car. They were preaching to, and life member or something, and then the life member politician was saying, maybe he was thinking about, he wasn't sure if he was going to get out of politics or this and that, and my spiritual master was talking to him, and he, he wasn't exactly sure what to say and this and that, and Prabhupada was, in the car nearby, but, so anyways, my spiritual master said, oh, maybe you should just, you could stay within and, purify it and, try to help society, stuff like that, and kind of encouraging him, and then Prabhupada turned around and he said to the man, he said, oh no, he said, you should get out immediately. He said, politics is a nasty thing. So, anyways.
Like Prabhupada encouraged Gandhi, a letter that
Yeah.
I never know whether he received it or not. He said, now you should get out, follow the Bhagavad Gita. Just like in Vedic culture, why is it the kings at a certain age, the sons grow up, they turn it off and get out? There's a lot of stuff going on as in politics, and you got to purify yourself of it. A lot of karma. And then also you carry the karma of the citizens. How much? 1/6 of all the bad karma of the citizens. That's a lot of japa. That's a lot of rounds to have to chant at the end of your life to unload all of that. Right? You're carrying a lot of weight. A lot of weight.
Yeah, Prabhupada said in that letter to Mahatma Gandhi, he said, oh, he's encouraging you to get out of politics, and he says if you don't, it's gonna, you're gonna run into some difficulties. And he names some other politicians who, were killed and assassinated and this and that, and then shortly after.
Yeah, very dangerous. Yes, Prabhu.
With the word kakastocracy, have you heard of that? Kakastocracy?
It's related to democracy and like that, and aristocracy, but it's kakastocracy. Government by the worst persons. A form of government in which the worst persons are in power. That's what we're reading about. And that's what we're living.
What is it? How is it spelled? What is it called?
Kakistocracy. Kakistocracy.
Okay, that's interesting.
This word was
people.
completely unknown. No one knew this word until the present regime came in.
Top words in 2019. Anything else? So, of course, the main thing is the spreading of Krishna consciousness, the panacea for everything, ourselves and everyone, and that's our message. Take it or leave it. Whatever. That's our message. You can say, well, no, everyone's got to be Republican, everyone's got to be independent, everyone's got to be a Democrat, everyone's got to do this, and this person will solve your problems. And no, never have. It's not happening now, and never will, because it's the material world, and Krishna certifies the material world as simply being problematic. And so the whole thing is to purify the consciousness, try to make this material world a little bit peaceful and sane, but then just get out, go back home, back to God. Especially in Kali Yuga, the current's against us. It's against us. The current is against everyone in Kali Yuga. So, we try to, we preach. Yes. Yes, yeah. Kirtanadeva Krishnasya. Mukta Sangam Eka Kala. Right? Eka Guna. One thing. So we can end here. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.